the stream today, I had to go to the grocery store, pick up some healthy fruits and vegetables for my meal plan. I had to wait for my car to heat up, and I just now got home. Right, like I was doing things before the stream, and it's so frustrating because I really wanted to come back on and just go like da da da. We have so much to talk about today, and we do, but I'm starving. I have stuff in the oven. I'm just haven't eaten anything yet. I'm just man, I was feeling dizzy at work. I don't know. I was eating nothing but oranges for this since lunch. It was a pain. Okay, it was a complete nightmare. But now we're here. Now we're finally streaming. I wish I got to eat before I went live, but you know how it is, right? I'll just finish the stream real quick and then just eat before bed. But yeah, it is time to disavow the anti-woke community. That means Raging Golden Eagle. That means Clownfish TV. That means, I don't know, Ricada Law. Not that I haven't been doing that already, but, the reality is the anti-woke community have essentially become a parody of themselves. Right? These guys will fire up live streams complaining about all the things the evil SJWs are doing to our culture, to our sports teams, to our Hollywood films, which totally were based and red pilled back when we were growing up, guys. They weren't always just propaganda, right? Right? We gotta save our Japanese video games. We gotta save our comic books, our manga. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. No, the reality is very simple, right? The way to beat the woke virus is basically just consume the stuff that is good and don't consume the stuff that is bad, right? You don't need to obsessively make YouTube videos complaining about every little thing that Kathleen Kennedy or Marvel does, right? You don't have to complain about, make things up about the upcoming the DC movie, right? You don't have to do that. You don't have to do several hour-long live streams complaining about localization changes to Japanese games while professing your love for lolicon and Japanese pornography, right? You don't need to do any of that, right? The reality is that the woke thing is collapsing, right? It couldn't be more obvious to everyone that everyone's sick of it. It's not going anywhere. It's not making anyone money. The only reason it's being pushed forward now is for propaganda purposes. And the best way to deal with propaganda, well, first of all, you have to acknowledge it exists, right? You do have to acknowledge that okay, this is what they're trying to do. This is how they're gonna you have to talk about it to a certain extent. But the way the anti-woke outrage community does it, they spurg out over the most pointless, ridiculous things. Oh, her skirt is too long. Oh, you should be seeing her panties or nothing at all. You should be seeing this. They redesigned this character, right? Is this why we don't get new Dead or Alive games now? It's weird seeing the cope from the community, right? Bending over backwards, to not talk about the actual problems with the Japanese video game industry, but instead hyper-fixating on things that really, really don't matter, right? It is crazy to me that Yakuza 8 is coming out in the current state it is, right? Oh, Like a Dragon 8. This game is coming out in the state that it's in, right? That, it's the next in a long line of mediocre releases from that company, right, from Sega. It's having all these problems, right? The narrative has fallen off a long time ago. Ichiban is a character nobody cares about. The series is becoming a parody of itself, right? They're charging you $15 for New Game Plus, right? Apparently, right? They hired Yang Ye as the voice of Kiryu, right? I know he's dying of cancer now. I wonder if that's why they hired Yang Ye. The literal cancer of YouTube. But, the reality is, these games have been going downhill for a long time, right? They have a lot of technical problems, right? They are repetitive. They don't innovate. They don't do anything new. It's the same kind of thing over and over and over again. And for some reason, there's a very dedicated group of like autistic, like 4chan users who don't like admitting that Yakuza peaked a long time ago. And the games we're getting now are much shallower than the ones we got several years before. And that's been true for a long time. I would say even Zero was like post peak, right? 6 was a disaster. The remakes were a disaster. Like 7 could like follow up on 6 because it couldn't do the simplest thing and keep Kiryu out of it, right? Like, I don't understand why people love to blame the localization teams for all of this, right? Like, because the issues with these games, with games like this, with Fire Emblem Fates, with countless other examples, right? It has nothing to do with the localization teams. Like, there is this very big unwillingness in the community to hold the Japanese accountable for anything when they screw up. There's always this like big thing like, oh, they don't understand. They don't understand how things are here. They don't understand how anti-woke sentiments is growing in America. And they're just, no, they are aware. They know. They just don't care. They are complicit. They are compliant. They are going along with what the woke masters are telling them to do because they are sheep essentially. Anybody with any real integrity, people like Kamiya, people like Makame, people like those guys, like they leave the companies that are being forced to do this. Right, the guy behind BlazBlue left his company. I'm sure for the same reason. And what happened immediately after that? Brigid became a troon. Right? Like, the time for this is past. Okay, we need to stop pretending as if, like, Japan is, like, unfathomably based. And they just have, like, they just don't know how bad things are over here. Like, no, like, they are, in a lot of ways, worse than the West. Because they are doing something that is far more terrible than, like, keel-hauling to the SJW woke crowd. They're doing something way worse than that. They are doing something that is ruining video games. And that is neglecting Nintendo consoles, right? This has been going on since the 90s. It's like a product of the PlayStation brand. It was like a thing they used to try and ruin Nintendo. Come to PlayStation, we'll pay you hundreds of millions of dollars to make your big new RPG, PlayStation exclusive, right? They did that, right? And all of these like iconic third-party brands went to PlayStation, right? And it led to this myth that PlayStation is, the place to go for all the big third-party games, the highest quality games to market. It was never true at any point, but that was the narrative for a long time. And it's slowly been falling apart over the years as these games get worse and worse. But, like, the reality is, there is this very, very, very stubborn refusal from the community to admit that these games are going downhill. And I think Yakuza is a really good example of that. I think Street Fighter is a really good example of that. I think that like the newer Marvel vs. Capcom game is a good example of that. Like there are so many epic fails over the past couple of years that people love to just write off, right? Final Fantasy VII Arm, right, is probably the big one. Like nothing. The way the anti-woke community tries to spin this is that, like, oh, the ethics board censored Tifa, and that's why the game is bad. Like, what about all the other problems? What about the butchered plot and the gameplay and, like, the lack of real character arcs and just, like, the complete failure to adhere to, like, what made Final Fantasy VII special, right? Like, what about that? Like, why is there not more talk about what a huge raging disappointment Final Fantasy VII Arm was? Why is there not more discussion about Final Fantasy 16? Why is there not more discussion about Forspoken? Right? Like, we spent the past year dealing with people trying to convince us that Nintendo screwed up Mario Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom. these games can't compete in the modern market. Meanwhile, they're like hugely successful, hugely popular, did really, really well, way better than a lot of games from other companies. But you know, those other companies were the ones that people were pretending for a good long while were better than those games. You know, DSP straight up said that like Street Fighter 6 was his game of the year. Like, like, what are you talking about, you delusional pig roach? Like really? Best game of the year? Like, are you serious? Like, it's just like, it's very frustrating, right? Looking at what the YouTuber community is talking about, what they spurg about, and like really realizing that, like, coming to terms with the fact that, like, they don't care about video games at all, right? I talked about this earlier with like Clownfish TV, right? And they're like spurging over the Princess Peach box art change, right? They were legit trying to do this thing where they were sitting there, they were going like, oh man, they're trying to make her into a girl boss. Look at that smug expression. Look at that face. Like, they legit like spent like 10 minutes trying to convince us that like changing the Princess Peach box art to more strongly resemble like the movie character Princess Peach, like that was somehow like some woke agenda, right? You know, I saw the other day on Gataku in Action, like they changed the designs of some of the characters in the sequel. And instead of like realizing that like, oh, the original characters were kind of generic, let's give them a bit more personality, let's give them a bit more like things to do in the plot or whatever. Like, instead they tried to spin it as like, oh, Nintendo is going woke because one of the girls is like half black. Like, you can actually compare her to like the original model and you'll kind of see that like, you know, the original model was kind of boring, you know? Like, I really think that the change was an improvement. Right? That's something that a lot of people don't really think about, is that like maybe the changes that they make sometimes are done for a very, very good reason. And that is the issue that we're having with the anti-woke community. There is no nuance. They just look, they see a black person and they're just like woke. They see like a woman and they're just like woke. You know, they see like a woman female lead in a new upcoming game. They try to call it woke, right? Like, I saw someone try to say that Samus Aran from Metroid Prime Remastered would be the standard look of the character going forward. Right? Because she was so much uglier than every other version of the character we've ever seen, right? Never mind that she was always like ugly as sin in that game and they fixed it by Metroid Prime 2. But like, let's paint this narrative that Nintendo is just pumping these ugly ass bitches into all of their like major AAA games. Let's pretend that like all the female NPCs in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are bodybuilders, right? Let's pretend that like Bayonetta is a lesbian, right? Let's pretend that like Pearl and Marina are in a lesbian relationship. Let's pretend that Nintendo was on the verge of going woke, like, all the time. And that is something you'll notice when, like, you watch a lot of these people, is that, like, how aggressively they go after Nintendo, in spite of, like, not really doing anything to, like, earn their kind of ire, right? You know, a very persistent narrative I've seen is that, like, Nintendo is particularly censorship heavy, but in reality, that's just not the case, right? Like, you know, Raging Golden Eagle, like, when I watched his streams looking for like or like ridiculous hot takes, he would like try to say like, oh, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it's censored. I'm sorry, I'm making his voice too low. It's like, oh, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is censored because the game all the female characters are covered up at the beginning of the game. This is a clear violation of Japanese sensibilities because they love ecchi content. Like, again, no sense of nuance, you know, no consideration for, like, what the game is actually about or what the characters are going through or, like, you know, the resolutions or, like, the progression, like no consideration for any of that at all. Like, oh, any covered female skin is bad. That's censorship, you know? Like, it is the most important thing to these people. They don't care about the gameplay. They don't care about the stories. They don't care about like the art style or the design or like the mechanics of the game or what you do in the game or like the experience of playing the game. Like, it's entirely about how much skin the female characters are showing, right? Like, I remember when they showed off that like Mithra design for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where like she has like the leggings instead, and like these people like legit spurred out about it, like, oh no, she's been censored, and then like eventually there was this like realization that like the design was actually pretty hot. So it's like why exactly every single time do you jump to accusations of censorship? And that's kind of the issue with Yakuza 8 right now, is that all of the very real problems with the game right now, I'm sorry, like a Dragon 8, excuse me. The problem with Like a Dragon 8 right now is that all of the very real problems with the game are being brushed aside because people are blaming everything wrong with the experience on the localization team, right? They're blaming like certain story decisions on them. They're blaming like, the stripping down of certain mechanics on them. They're like throwing everything at the wall. Like, there's an article going around like complaining like about like how the localization is like getting increasingly is getting increasingly more powerful in Japan or something. It's probably a propaganda article because my understanding is that like the Japanese audience are actually starting to push back against Western localization practices. But like, yeah, like that article was like just bombarded in the comment section, and it's kind of a shame because my personal stance on this has always been that like localization is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with like rewriting jokes or changing character names or changing a location. Ace Attorney does it all the time, right? Ace Attorney does stuff like that all the time. Like, you need to do that to a certain extent because like certain things do not translate well to other languages. It is not just a meme. You cannot just do a direct translation, which is one of the reasons why like people saying that like AI is gonna replace like localizers are like completely full of crap. Like, it just isn't gonna happen that way because like localizers do not and never have directly translated a product, right? They need to keep in mind like the sensibilities of what they're trying to localize and how best to kind of bring it over to the West, right? Like, that's their role. Yu-Gi-Oh did it, Pokemon did it, Digimon did it. Like, it's an essential part of the process, especially if you're making something for a younger audience who may not like understand the nature of like foreign stuff and how cultures are different and stuff like that. So like, yeah, it's very much like a necessary part of the process. I wouldn't even call it a necessary evil, right? Like, it is something that is necessary for bringing these things over to the West. The real issue is like the over like politicalization of the process, right? You have people like actively there pushing their personal views onto the general unsuspecting gaming population. Outright references to Karl Marx. Stupid memes. Lots of they them pronouns. Random line changes that don't make any sense. Like, that stuff does happen. But instead of like writing them off as just like a mistranslation or whatever, like something that isn't accurate, like everybody has to like cry that it's like ruining the entire experience, right? This is something I had to deal with 13 Sentinels, where there's like one line in the entire game that's like somewhat questionable, where like a crossdresser refers to himself as non-binary. Again, it's stupid, but whatever, it's not a big deal. Like, the rest of the game is like pure Kino, but like because of that one line, there was a very concentrated push to like boycott the game and not support it and like what have you. And for me, it's like, if I hadn't played that game, I would have missed out on like just prime, just amazing Kino, right? Like, why would I skip a game because of some dumb localizer like pulling a stunt like that? Like, am I supposed to skip Tears of the Kingdom because of the they them pronouns like that are used in like the most ridiculous ways imaginable? Like, am I supposed to skip Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX because for some reason when you refer to when you evolve a Pokemon, the game refers to it as a they. Like, am I supposed to do that? Like, no. Like, all you really need to do is like is just acknowledge that it is a problem and that it needs to stop, and it'll escalate from there. And I do think it's escalating at this point. Like, you wouldn't be seeing these weird propaganda articles like, protecting localization corruption if it wasn't the case. But like, I mean, the problem for me is that like the censor shitters, as I call them, right? The group of people who like aggressively go after like corrupt localizers, like they tend to focus on things that do not matter, right? Like it is insane to me just how little the stuff they talk about is really that big of a deal, and how much they like really neglect to mention other things that are like much more important. And I do think the much more important thing in general is like the quality of the games themselves. Like we have seen a lot of instances where games that are like generally considered to be uncensored but are mediocre are like praised by the community, while like legit great ones that have like maybe some iffy localization choices are like straight up demonized, right? Like I remember how like Fire Emblem Awakening was like derided because of like the curtain thing on like Tharia's ass. Like I remember people like freaking out about it, like, oh, it's censored. And I think Raging Golden Eagle like claims it's the reason he's boycotting the franchise, which is dumb, by the way. But like how does having a curtain over worst girl's ass ruin the experience? Like, what exactly does that take away? Especially if you don't marry her, or like, if you don't care about her at all. Like, what else in the game is worth getting upset about? Like Engage is another example. Like people spurg out about the localization changes in that and Three Houses, but there's not really that big of a deal, right? Like it's just like, yeah, the localization changes do need to like be more professional in how they conduct themselves and more accurately express the original intent of the text. But at the same time, right, the practice itself is not reprehensible, right? Like people are lashing out against specific industries that need to exist, and that to me is one of those things that just really gets to me about this, is that like, yeah, like you do need to have localizers, you do need to make changes for Western audiences, you do need to like have make considerations for people who don't speak the native language, who don't understand Japanese, right? Japanese culture and stuff like that. One of the examples I always go to is like playing Yakuza 5, on the PS3, right? The original digital only release in this country. There are things about it that are just straight up unplayable because of the way the localization was handled, right? I think the big one for me was always like the comedy thing with like Haruka and the worst comedian in the world. Like you're going up there, you're listening to this guy tell a story, and you're supposed to like press a button to have Haruka do something, and you can't just press the right button. Like you have to wait for him to finish his sentence, and then you're supposed to like press the correct one, right? It's supposed to be about comedic timing, but because he's speaking Japanese, because like the text box just appears on the screen or whatever, right? Because there's no way because he takes all these unnecessary pauses, because like you don't understand the nuance of the sentence, like you don't know exactly when you're supposed to press the button. And as a result of it, even with a guide, you're going to get it wrong a lot. Like, I remember I had to try over and over and over and over again to get the timing down. And in the end, it felt like completely unnecessary, right? Like, to me, it felt like this needed to be adjusted for an English-speaking audience. And there are, of course, like a lot of things in Yakuza that need that. Mahjong, I think, is like the example everyone goes to. But, like, my point is that, like, the demonization of localizers has to stop. People need to like stop attacking voice actors or care about their personal opinions or care about the way they conduct themselves, and just like enjoy the product for what it is, right? Like if preserving the intent of the original matters so much to you, like you should just play the original in the original Japanese, right? Like I don't understand this mindset that like they have have to like 100% translate everything over, like what, regardless of whether or not it makes any sense, right? Like that is just not realistic to me. It makes no sense. It would really cut into their profits, and that's something that RGE takes pride in. And that's another thing that I have an issue with when it comes to these people is this insistence that like, yeah, they need to ignore the mass market. They need to ignore the normies. They need to make this stuff for the real fans. I've been playing Fire Emblem since it came out, bro. Like I played it for a solid 10 years before I stopped playing with Awakening. When it started being casualized, like I'm the real audience. Hey, genius. It's been over 10 years since Awakening came out. People who started with Awakening now have more experience with it than you did if you started with Blazing Sword in 2003. There have been more high quality Fire Emblem releases in the past several years than there were like throughout like the series' entire history up to this point. You know, like the games have gotten better, but there's this very stubborn refusal from those kind of weebs to really acknowledge it. They really want you to believe the series has fallen into some kind of dark age and that it's never ever going to recover, when that is not and never has been true. If anything, like the Dark Age was right before Awakening, with like those terrible remakes and Radiant Dawn and stuff like that. Like Awakening was supposed to be the last game of the franchise, apparently, right? So it's like, what exactly are you complaining about? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. And yeah, like to me, like it's becoming more and more obvious, I think, that the vast majority of the anti-woke community will bend over backwards to criticize Nintendo specifically. I've seen a lot of people over the past couple of days, like, you know, Clownfish TV, they made like 5 videos, like trying to like demonize the Pokemon company because they thought it would get them views. They thought Power World was actually popular. It was adorable. You know, Raging Golden Eagle is talking about them all the time. You know, Niche Gamer talks about them all the time. You know, they legit will like, these people will legit try to tell you that Nintendo Treehouse is one of the worst localization companies in the industry, despite the fact that's not actually true. Like, whenever you have a problem with the localization, it's typically not them. But, it's like, okay. I guess we can look at those Clownfish TV videos, because I think I said everything I wanted to say about that. Let's see, Clownfish TV. Oh, I can see why they're talking about Pokemon. They're getting, like, way more views than usual on it. Okay. I mean, they're just not that relevant in general. Wow. Let's see. What should we watch? Nintendo trolled over Power World in every Pokemon tweet they post now. We won't have time to watch all of this. Power World versus PETA. And they have Pikachu up there, because of course they do. Nintendo calls out Power World.
Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, not here with Pinky Sparkles in this video, but we're going to talk about Power World on the main Clownfish TV channel as opposed to Clownfish Gaming. Reason being is that the news is huge, it's involving lawsuits, and I think it definitely bleeds outside of just the gaming industry. I mean, CNN is covering it now, that Power World's success is just, it's massive.
No, it's not.
13 hours ago. Pocket Pair said
It's adorable that people actually believe this. This is crazy.
They've had 8 million copies.
Wow, 8 million sales. Wow. How long are they going to keep playing the game? As in the player count has dropped by like 50% already. That's like falling off a lot. And of course, like I would say the bots are propping up the player counts. I don't know. Again, but like, not that we should take sales or player counts seriously, but like, the reality is Power World isn't going to be relevant like 5 years from now. Like, I am just tired of hearing about it. It's just like,
mistakes. It's insane. Pocket Pair is like rolling in the dough, and Nintendo is seething. We're gonna talk about Nintendo's response.
no, they're not. No, they're not. They don't care, right? The issue is like the plagiarism. Like, why do these people love to pretend as if like Nintendo is really concerned about Power World's success? Like, the issue isn't the money. Like, this isn't impacting them at all. There's no Pokemon game coming out anytime soon. Like, the issue is that they plagiarize the models. And, like, people like this really don't like admitting that. It's like they really want to bend over backwards to try and defend, like...
And
yeah, fuck Neon!
It's not going to go the way they're hoping. I mean, I know a lot of Nintendo fans and a lot of Pokemon fans would love to see Nintendo stomp down Pocket Pair completely. And be like, no, there can only be one. You know, Nintendo, we choose you.
Bro, I'm playing Dragon Quest Monsters right now. You know, I'm playing other games. You know, like, I play other RPGs. This idea that people are, like, going after Power World because, like, they're just jealous of it is the stupidest argument I have ever heard in my life. You know, how much did you see, like, the Pokemon community, like, hype up Temtem or, like, you know, Monster Hunter Stories? Like, you saw a lot of that, like, especially during Dexit. Like, Pokemon fans are very, very, very supportive of its competition. You know, Digimon, like, I just went on a rant yesterday about how much I loved Digimon growing up and how I'm excited to be watching it again. Right? This idea that, like, oh, we're just jealous of Power World's success. It is completely, utterly wrong. You need to stop.
But I don't know if it's going to be that easy. That being said, there were accusations that Pocket Pair actually lifted
It did.
meshes and models
It did.
from, you know, official Pokemon games, and they're looking to investigate. Now, I thought that had been debunked. We did a video yesterday.
Yeah, you thought? You believe some random Twitter user, oh, debunked, and, like, you're surprised when, like, that wasn't actually true. Like, that... I don't understand how anybody could be so stupid to actually believe that Power World has original models. Like, those are 100% plagiarized. Like, it's crazy. Like, the only reason you wouldn't think that is if you didn't know what a Pokemon looks like in 3D. Like, that's the only answer I can come up with as to why so many people seriously bought the whole, like, debunking completely seriously. Like, oh, it's been debunked. Like, no, it hasn't. Like, you need to stop.
That the person who was bringing this up definitely had a bias, definitely wanted to see.
It wasn't just him. I'm doing it. Other people are doing it. It's obvious to anybody who isn't a cocksucker, Neon. Okay.
The game shut down. The one scene, Power World shut down because of the violence that you punch pals in the face. And
No, it's because of the plagiarism. They stole models. Like, what is so difficult to understand about this?
eat them, and they could be equipped with machine guns, and they weren't real big on that, right? But it was kind of a stretch. But believe me, Nintendo's probably, given the financial success, they're looking for every possible angle to get this thing shut down. They already shut down the mod.
Why would they care? Why would they care if they have competition? Like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, this is straight up delusional. It really is. They really think Nintendo is, like, quaking in their boots because they're so scared of Power World. You know, a game that's, like, already lost, like, a significant portion of its player base. You know, a game that's, like, been astroturfed by, to hell and back by YouTubers who don't know anything about the Pokemon brand. Right? Like, really? Like, oh, Pokemon hasn't changed since the 90s? Yeah, sure.
Which paid for. I don't think it was paid for.
It was. Wait, hang on. Back that up.
For every possible angle to get this thing shut down. They already shut down the mod, which I don't think was paid for. I don't think it was paid for.
It was. It was a paid mod. Don't give me that bullshit, Neon, Cloudfish TV. Like, no. It was paid for.
It allowed you to put official Pokemon characters into this game, which is very, very Pokemon adjacent. Now, to be fair, if you've actually played the game is more of a crafting survival game like Ark Survival Evolved. You know, it's less traditional Pokemon game and more of that. Just it happens to have little animals that look very similar. They do look very similar.
Plagiarized.
25% difference. So they do look very similar to Pokemon, but they're at least 25% different. So what are you gonna do? But when the media is calling it Pokemon with guns, that's gonna get Nintendo's attention. And if Nintendo does somehow manage to squash Power World, they're gonna have to deal with a very, very angry internet.
They really think that a bunch of salty internet users are going to come after Nintendo? Like, really? They think Twitter is going to cancel Nintendo over this. They really think it's going to happen. Like, they've been threatening this, like, since, like, the lawsuit became, like, apparent. Since they, like, started their investigation. Like, oh, we're going to come after you. All 8 million of us. Like, what you going to do? Like, what are you going to do?
Last time Nintendo did something stupid, they've done a lot of stupid things, but
like what?
Something really, really stupid. That was to squash people from streaming their games. Do you remember that? That was a while ago.
Bullshit! That never happened. Never happened. I stream all the time, every Friday. What a piece of shit.
If you streamed Nintendo's games, they would actually copyright strike your channel unless you joined their MCN and they got a cut of your money. Remember that whole thing? That was so stupid and that hurt them because what happened?
It did not! It did not hurt them! Like,
a lot of streamers, a lot of YouTube.
Nobody cares about the streamers!
And a lot of stuff blew up. A lot of streamers are playing Power World. And if you try to smash it down, you're going to have a lot of backfire.
Streamers are a cancer, okay? Nobody cares about what a streamer thinks. You are paid shills, okay? You are parasites on the gaming sphere. You are selling bad products to people who don't know any better. You are advocating for straight-up plagiarism while demonizing the actual owner of the IP, right? Like, you are a parasite because you want Power World to succeed because you can leech off of it more effectively. Because no one else is covering the game. Because nobody cares about it.
I think from a lot of players, 8 million people bought this game.
Yeah, sure.
8 million angry people furious with Nintendo for taking Power World away. Now, again, if Pocket Pair broke the law, that's a totally different situation.
They did break the law. They stole the models. I don't understand what's so difficult to understand about this.
You're breaking the law, I don't know if they did. I don't think they did. I think people are reaching because they just want to see this game fail because they're huge Pokemon stans. So let's...
anybody who uses the word stan is, like, cringy as fuck. But, like, yeah, Power World has already failed because it's never going to leave early access, right? They're going to take your money and run. Is, like, my understanding of the situation. It is going to get shut down. It's not going to stay relevant. It's certainly not going to, like, be a finished product. That's definitely one of the things I've noticed in regards to, like, this kind of content creator is that they really glaze over the fact the game is in early access and that it isn't unfinished and it does have a lot of missing content, right? They just give you this vague idea like, 8 million sales, but without any real context as to, like, how it reached that number, right? Why it reached that number, like, the fact that the game hasn't really... it doesn't matter how well a game sells. It is the realization that people really need to have when it comes to this kind of thing. It's something that I wish the gaming community could wrap their little pea brains around, right? The fact is, like, if you have to show like the 8 million sold logo like every single time you're talking about Power World, you know you have a problem because you're not talking about the actual game.
Let's talk about the official SmackDown from Nintendo. Gotta give a hat to Black Sage D, who sent it over last night, but it's definitely making the rounds. People are not happy. This was on their website, on the Pokemon Company's website. Inquiries regarding other companies' games, because I'm sure all those angry Pokemon fans, did you know there's a game out there that's kind of like Pokemon that's making more money than you are? It's not.
Pokemon generated $11.9 billion in 2022. Like, Power World is making more money than Pokemon. No. You need to fuck off. Like, you do not know what you're talking about.
Great struck protection law IP thing that I heard from my Discord friends. You need to get rid of it. Inquiries, I'm sure they got it. Shit ton. I'm sure they did. Inquiries regarding other companies' games. We have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game.
Yep, it's assets.
We intend to
they used assets. Like, that's the issue.
Investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon in its world and work to bring the world together through Pokemon in the future. The Pokemon Company. That is a threat. That is like Umbridge in Harry Potter. Sickly sweet, but you know what her intentions actually are. This is Nintendo being like, we love all of you, and we love our Pokemon.
It's the Pokemon Company. It's a different entity, you complete dipshit. I didn't want to point this out, but, like, they literally signed it the Pokemon Company, okay? Like, know what you're talking about. You don't even have your basic facts straight, and you're talking like you're an authority on the subject. Like, holy crap.
We wouldn't want anything bad to happen to our Pokemons, would we? It's like those son of a bitches are making too much fucking money off of fucking pocket monsters, fucking machine guns. God, if we'd only done that first. And they're furious.
Wouldn't have done it.
This could have been Pokemon. I mean, minus the guns, minus the ability to cook them and eat them. But this could have been what Pokemon evolved into, and it didn't. So here's some of the reactions to Wario64's tweet. They can't do anything. Just because pals look similar means nothing. They can't do anything about the art style either. They can investigate all they want. They're going to investigate it. They're going to try to tie it up, or they'll try to get an injunction or something. They're going to try to stop it. Got to stop them all. You can't let another game beat Pokemon, because it's, what are you going to do? Like, God, then Universal's going to go get some funny ideas. They're going to have a Power World ride. You can't have that. Honestly, I doubt they're going to be able to do very much about it here, according to Peter Fishke. I think it's also for the benefit of the poor customer service people at Nintendo, because they have to answer crazy-ass emails. Like, they're getting piles and piles and piles of emails from these unhinged Pokemon stands, the same ones that are sending pocket-paired death threats. Like, can you imagine the mail that they're getting over there? You have to kill them! You have to kill them, Nintendo! We know you're the good guys! You have to get rid of them. They're scared that Power World is getting more successful. Says Marcia, this is just a please stop sending us emails about Power World statement. That's what I think it is too. I think, yes, we're very aware that Power World exists. Yes, we're very aware that the monsters in Power World, the pals, look very similar to Pokemon. Yes, we're going to investigate, make sure they didn't actually steal assets from our games. But if it turns out that they didn't, there's not a damn thing they can do about it. You don't have the patent on cutesy monsters that can get stuffed into bowls. Pokemon Company having to make a statement due to people snitching is wild. That's pretty much what they're doing, yeah. Surprised they even acknowledged it. Doubt Palworld gets hit with legal action or anything, but figured the Pokemon Company would just ignore it. They can't ignore it. 8 million copies in 6 days? You can't ignore that shit. That's crazy. Nurture each and every Pokemon. You gave Meganium Sword Stance for some fucking reason and called it a damn day. We want attack buffs. Yeah, I don't like your Pokemon. I got bored. I got bored with the new Pokemon games.
Yeah, how typical for a Palworld shill. Like, oh, I got bored of Pokemon. It needed to have guns and, like, slavery for me to stay interested. This is what Pokemon should have been. I hate these clownfish retards. Yeah, I just discovered them recently. I do, too. Like, I hate them. They are just pure shit. Like, I don't know. Like, again, this is why I'm going after, like, these anti-woke communities. Because they're all like this. They're all grifters, right? They're not talking about real unethical things in, like, the gaming journalism sphere or gaming journalism. They're just making these ridiculous statements for clicks. Like, they're all like this.
World's freaking awesome. I love that. I love that my little cute animals can have machine guns. They can be turned into flamethrowers. That shit's crazy. Time for a new king to take the crown. I want Nintendo to suffer. Oh, it's Palworld. So they're gonna do nothing. FYI, this means nothing. If they had something, they'd strike it down without hesitation. That's true. Gotta love.
They have to prove to a court that, like, the assets are stolen, right? Because it is true that, like, if the monster designs were original, that they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But that's the problem, is that they're not original, and they have to, like, prove that the assets are 100% stolen before they proceed with their legal inquiry, right? Like, again, it's gonna take time to do this. Like, again, they're gonna have to force. Like, I would imagine their goal would be to shut down Palworld overnight. Is what they would want. They would want, like, an absolute ironclad case before they proceed. But
the sheer amount of people running to Nintendo of all places to let them know. Yeah, it's Nintendo doesn't know some Pokemon adjacent game just sold 8 million copies and is on CNN for just an unparalleled level of success out of the gate. And Nintendo doesn't know. Does Nintendo know? Somebody needs to let Miyamoto know. Do you know? Did you know? I can just picture, like, all these people being like the train kid on the Polar Express, the know-it-all kid. Did you know there's some game out there that's like Pokemon, but it's not exactly Pokemon, but it's pretty close. And I was.
You mean like Digimon? You fucking retard.
Doing some internet digging, and I saw that the meshes are pretty close, because there's this guy on YouTube that put the video up, and they put the two foxes on top of each other. Did you know that they look pretty much exactly the same? Did you know, Nintendo? Fuck you. That's Nintendo's response. Fuck you, you little dweeb. Yeah, we know. Yeah, we're pretty pissed about it, but, you know, there's not much we can do. But yeah, we know. I know Nintendo don't play that. Doesn't sound like they're doing anything. The sale's gonna go even harder after this. That's true.
I really, really want to see what these people do if Nintendo does do something about it. They are so confident right now that nothing's going to happen. It's kind of laughable. It's kind of sad. Like, they really are convinced Palworld is, like, untouchable. Yeah, he's a cuck. Yeah, I'll stand by that statement. He's a cuck.
Received many inquiries. Translation: Crybabies came to us. They should release Palworld on the Switch. Oh my god, that would be the ballsiest move ever. If Nintendo's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, well.
Temtem came out on Switch and nobody cared. That's something you don't hear a lot of people talk about, but it is true.
Cut your money. Sure, we'll put Palworld on Switch. We'll put it on Switch because we get paid. We put Palworld on Switch, we're still getting paid because it's on Switch, and we get paid for every sale on Switch. A multi-billion-dollar company is afraid of a game that sold 8 million copies in 6 days. Wow, Pokemon, you're showing your true colors. This is about mods or something bigger. Let's go. He basically said, leave us alone. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's how I read it. Everybody's like,
that's fucking stupid. Like what a Like, imagine scrolling Twitter and thinking it's like an adequate view of the legal situation. Like, do you really think that all of these guys are legal experts, that they know, that they can 100% prove that, like, Power World is completely 100% original? Like, no. They're just a bunch of dipshits who are just talking out their ass. And they have no idea what they're talking about. Okay, one last thing. We're going to be watching some The Cricketa today.
All right. And we're live. Oh my god.
Oh.
What's that?
Hello, everybody.
I know. Okay, I actually talked shit about like Steel Toe before they started getting involved with Ricada. Like, I was watching their DSP stuff and I saw right through them. I knew they were grifters. I knew they were up to no good. And what happens? They go in Ricada's hot tub with his wife. Ooh.
That's 0 viewers.
Wait, because we screwed up the first one, and now we're on
No,
this
there's
one,
a person there.
and now there's people. We are here with Vito and his lovely wife.
And his wife did
Hey, we can keep this off.
I don't know. I've got a compliment for Nick here. Phantom X says, "Whoa, Nick looking buff. Is it the angle or has he been hitting the gym?"
I have
Ah.
actually been in the gym.
Twice
Jim is
now.
tired of getting hit.
Jim is probably tired of you.
Oh, that's true.
Pinks everywhere. I guess we're swinging tonight. Maybe I put it on the table. They were
What the
just.
fuck is with Ricada's movements? Like, he looks so erratic. Like, what am I even watching?
Look, guys, here's the deal. There's no swinging tonight unless Nick and I get drunk enough and we decide our lips look too tasty.
It's just.
What? What? What am I watching?
Aaron's butthole is mine.
You notice we ladies are on the inside is to keep these boys off each
The
other.
sexual
They're
tension.
just
They can't help themselves.
We pretend that the heads of our penises are magnets with the same charge, and we just go.
Guys, I lost my voice, and you know how.
People told me this was cringe, but like, what? What am I watching?
get comfortable.
Okay. No driving and drinking. It's good advice. I don't know what the lawyer would say about that, but I think it's fine.
I believe Nick's official advice on drinking and driving is.
Aristocrat
You
says.
can drink and drive until you're
No, wait.
convicted.
You didn't. What did you name
I
this?
knew I hated these people for a reason. Like, fuck them. Fuck Ricada. Like, okay, not literally, but because I'm not a swinger, but like, shit.
Stream. 'Cause I-
Steel Toe members of
Okay.
the hot tub stream with special guests.
It wasn't correct. Aristocrat says hashtag swing stream. That's fine.
Oh, this is hashtag swing stream. I'm
There's
sorry.
not a swing in this hot tub.
You can't fit one in here. What do we got here? Minnesota.
But we're totally not swingers, guys. We're just gonna use the word swing over and over again and make gay jokes. Like, what? Like, this is so pathetic.
Choice.
Minnesota Gold.
Oh, and then
By the way, Kayla looks completely different. Like, her face looks weird. Like,
Talk also with hashtag cream stream. I'm also a fan of that.
Cream stream.
Ew.
Aaron,
No, he likes coffee.
I thought he was talking about the band Cream.
Oh.
I have a compliment for Aaron for
Oh.
a change. Great Idol says Aaron looks normal. You definitely need to ditch your camera. Apparently, the Ricadas have all the good cameras. We're going
This
to
is my
steal them.
phone.
It is your phone. This is a talent phone.
I hang out with a rich guy one time and everyone thinks my shit is his shit.
oh yeah, Ricada's supposed to be doing a sober stream, and he's not. He's 100% drinking in this.
I never wanted to go home either when I used to party, says SH. Yes, we've been partying all
You're the
day.
rich guy.
I don't have any money.
You are the rich guy.
You can touch your foot. Sorry.
They're touching.
Don't you dare
Not us.
apologize.
It's these
I'll look
two.
into your eyes next time.
You bite your lip and you give her hell.
I think for a certain dono, we could get a lip kiss from these two, maybe?
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Right
whoa.
here.
Nice.
Not on your
Whoa,
channels.
whoa, whoa. Stop things.
I'm not trying to get right-wing trad fella here in any kind of trouble.
Yeah.
Hold on. Laugh says take out the milkers. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. He was talking about meat
Slobber
slots.
pockets.
Glass says take out the milk in this. Do you understand that it's not sexy to call them that and therefore
Says who? Guys, don't listen. Disregard.
What do you think he's referring to?
tits.
No. Those are not milkers.
What are milkers?
I really need to be going to bed, but I can't stop watching this
The
shit.
hands milk.
They got
These are
hand.
milkers.
Okay, so we need a hand check. I don't know what this is.
I was a doll hand model. I modeled bananas and oranges.
Malevolent bystander says definitely disproving that swinger rumor. Yes, next
Yes.
week, and we will have the Viscontis in here as well.
We're gonna what was it? Hashtag swing stream. We're gonna have
Yes.
all of them on. Those are gonna be our guests.
We're going to pass
Is
this
it
hot
Chino
dog.
Italian?
Oh
Yeah,
yes, this
greasy
water's
as
going
all
to
hell.
be greasy.
I was gonna say I'm gonna have to clean all the hair out of my
Yes,
filters.
it's going to be greasy and little black hairs floating everywhere.
Oh, we're doing it here.
Yes.
Oh.
What's the ruling on that?
Yes, fingers and toes are digital penetration.
Yes.
Under the law.
No.
Thank you, that's all the legal advice. Any others will require a super chat of at least $5.
Do we want the big
Leave
toe or
it.
like multiple small toes?
Look, it's up to you.
First of all, my anus quivers at anything bigger than a ring toe.
Depends on the toe.
But do you want a ring on it? Because
I make a man commit to me before
You
he shoves
guys,
his toes in
hold
my
on,
ass.
hold on. Breaking news.
What?
I just got.
This is so stupid. Like, who did they stream this to? Why? Like, what were they thinking? Like, huh? Like, I'm so confused. Like, I'm halfway through the video, but like, I don't know. I really got to end the stream, and I want to eat my snack and go to bed. So, yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today. But wow, Rakeda is getting cringier than ever. All right, until next time, guys.